It happened quietly. No press conference. No statement. No explanation. On April 18, 2013, a 96-year-old man signed a single document and walked away from the most powerful position in world sport. His name was João Havelange. And for 24 years, he had controlled FIFA, the organization that owns the World Cup, the most watched event on the planet. The resignation came 3 days before FIFA's ethics committee was due to sanction him. Swiss court documents had already confirmed what investigators had spent a decade trying to prove, that Havelange and his son-in-law had received $42 million in bribes paid quietly over 8 years in exchange for FIFA's broadcasting rights. He never went to trial. He never went to prison. He simply resigned at 96. And the case was closed. But here is what that story misses entirely. Before the bribery, before the empire, before the $5 billion organization the World Cup became, there was a man with no money, no power, and no obvious reason to succeed, who looked at a broke, irrelevant Swiss committee and saw something nobody else did. He saw a television product. He saw a global currency. He saw the future of sport. And then he took it. João Havelange was born in Rio de Janeiro in 1916. His father was a Belgian arms dealer. His mother was Brazilian. He was not a football man, not at first. He was an Olympic swimmer. He competed at the 1936 Berlin Games, the same games where Jesse Owens humiliated Hitler's racial supremacy in front of 100,000 people. Havelange was there. He absorbed it. He came back in 1956 as part of the Brazilian water polo team. By then, he had graduated in law, built businesses, made money in insurance and transportation. He was a man who understood how systems worked and how to position himself inside them. By 1958, he was president of the Brazilian Sports Confederation. By 1963, he was a member of the International Olympic Committee. He was not a football administrator who became powerful. He was a powerful man who chose football as his vehicle. The question is, why FIFA? Why 1974? Because he looked at FIFA and saw what everyone else had missed. In 1974, FIFA was a Swiss gentleman's club. Stanley Rouse, an English school teacher turned football administrator, had run it for 13 years. He was respected. He was proper. He believed sport was sport pure, amateur at heart, European in its instincts. FIFA had 16 teams in its World Cup. It had no meaningful revenue. It was so broke that for the 1978 tournament in Argentina, FIFA had to ask Adidas to cover its own $8 million operating expenses. Let that land. The governing body of the most popular sport on earth couldn't fund its own flagship event. Ross saw this as a management problem, a budget problem, an administrative challenge. Havelange saw something completely different. He saw that football was not a sport. It was a product. The most watched product on earth. And the organization that controlled who got to sell it, who got to broadcast it, who got to put their name on it, would control something worth billions. What was standing between FIFA and that future? A Eurocentric voting system. 16 countries in the World Cup, most of them European. Dozens of African and Asian nations with full FIFA membership, but no representation at the tournament that mattered. No seat at the table. These nations had votes, and nobody was offering them anything. Havelange saw the arbitrage. In 1971, 3 years before the election, Havelange began. He visited more than 80 countries, every continent, every federation. He shook hands, remembered names, took photographs. He showed up in places no FIFA official had ever bothered to visit. And he carried a weapon. Pele, the greatest footballer who ever lived. A man whose face was recognized in villages that had never seen a FIFA official. Havelange brought Pele with him as his calling card. The Brazilian national team played exhibition matches in remote nations whose votes had never mattered before. His pitch was simple. It was also exactly what these nations had been waiting to hear. He promised to expand the World Cup from 16 to 24 teams, guaranteeing Africa and Asia automatic places for the first time. He promised investment in stadiums, training facilities, youth development. And he made his most powerful promise last: if you vote for me, South Africa and its apartheid regime will be permanently expelled from FIFA. Stanley Rouse, meanwhile, believed his record would speak for itself. He did not campaign the way Havelange did. He was the incumbent. He was respected. He was certain of his position. On June 11th, 1974, in a conference room in Frankfurt, the vote was held. Havelange, 68. Roos, 52. For the first time in FIFA's 70-year history, a non-European held the presidency. Power had been torn from Europe's grasp, and Havelange had done it with the votes of the nations Europe had ignored. Havelange delivered every promise. And then some. The 1982 World Cup in Spain expanded to 24 teams the first to include his new voters. Then to 32. The FIFA U17 World Cup. The U20 World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the Confederations Cup, all of it created under his tenure. The game he inherited had one major tournament. The game he left had a calendar. But the real transformation was financial. In 1974, FIFA couldn't pay its own bills. By the 1980s, it had something the sports world had never seen before: a centralized commercial operation. In 1982, Havelange's close ally Horst Dassler, heir to the Adidas empire, created International Sport and Leisure, ISL, a sports marketing company built to sell FIFA's broadcasting rights to the world. By 1987, European TV rights to 3 consecutive World Cups, 1990, 1994, 1998, sold for $440 million. By the 1990s, the rights to the following 3 tournaments sold for $2.2 billion. FIFA had gone from begging Adidas for $8 million to selling broadcasting rights for $2.2 billion. Sports marketer Patrick Nally, who worked closely with Havelange and Dassler in those early years, later said Havelange had seen the future. He knew that if he became president of the only federation already running its own high-profile world championship, he would enjoy huge economic power. He had not been wrong. In 2001, ISL collapsed. The company that had built FIFA's commercial empire went bankrupt with $300 million in debts. And when the liquidators examined the books, they found something that took a decade to fully emerge. From 1989 to 2001, ISL had paid out 185 million Swiss francs in what the company called personal commissions paid to sports officials and other decision makers involved in awarding broadcast and marketing rights. A Swiss judge in 2008 had a different word for it. He called it Schmiergeld, a German term. It means bribery. Swiss court documents, eventually published in 2012, confirmed that Havelange and Ricardo Teixeira, his son-in-law, had received 41 million Swiss francs in payments between 1992 and 2000 in exchange for the exclusive broadcasting rights Havelange had awarded to ISL. Havelange and Teixeira tried to suppress the court documents. FIFA, under Sepp Blatter, agreed to pay their settlement on the condition that criminal proceedings were dropped. By 2013, the Ethics Committee had opened formal proceedings. Havelange was 96 years old. He resigned 3 days before the hearing. The case was closed. He paid no fine, faced no trial. He died in 2016 at the age of 100, celebrated in Brazil as a national hero, having never been convicted of anything. Here's what the bribery story gets wrong. It treats Havelange as a corrupt official who stole from sport. That is accurate, but it misses what made him extraordinary and what made him dangerous. Havelange did not steal from football. He built it. The World Cup you are watching right now, 48 teams, global broadcasts, billions in sponsorships. That architecture was laid by a Brazilian lawyer who in 1971 looked at a broke, irrelevant Swiss committee and saw a television product that the world was not yet ready to name. He understood 3 things that nobody else had articulated. 1, votes are a currency. He didn't have money. He had something better, a promise the disenfranchised had been waiting decades to hear. He bought power with access. 2, distribution is the asset. He didn't build football. He controlled who got to sell it. The game was already popular. The broadcast rights were the prize. 3, if you control the infrastructure, you set the price. ISL didn't just sell rights. It created a monopoly on the commercial layer of world sport. Every dollar that flowed through the World Cup passed through a system he designed. He was not a football man who learned business. He was a businessman who chose football as the most undervalued distribution network on earth. The system he built still stands. The World Cup, generating billions of dollars right now, is, in its commercial structure, Havelange's creation. He just also made sure to charge himself a fee. Every 4 years, the world stops to watch this tournament. Billions of people. Billions of dollars. Almost none of them know the name João Havelange. Here's what I want to know from you, and there's no right answer. Was Havelange a visionary who also happened to be corrupt? Or was the corruption always the point? Leave it in the comments. The debate there is always better than the video. If you want more stories like this, people who saw value before the world caught on subscribe, this is what we do here.